Hi, this is Tracy Kelly, and I'm here today to share with you one of my favorite Growing Up Wild lessons called Wildlife is Everywhere. If you'd like to join me in your Growing Up Wild book, you can find Wildlife is Everywhere on pages 24 and 25 in the Growing Up Wild book. Today I'm going to share some specific parts of each that are in each of the Growing Up Wild lessons. There are resources that include literature connections. There are also resources that you can share with families that are called home connections. And of course, my favorite, which is the mighty math in each of the lessons. So if you look at page 24, on the very left-hand side of the page, there's a blue box that says resources. And you'll find both nonfiction and fiction books listed there, in addition to any media that you can find on the web. For instance, in this resource list, there is a reference to the projectwild.org website and specific resources that go with the lesson. I would like to share a story that I found called In My Backyard.
Hi, this is Tracy. Before sharing this great piece of children's literature, I want to speak briefly to online read-alouds or recordings for educational purposes. My recordings are covered through the fair use provision of copyright law because the purpose is to use these videos as part of an extended educational activity in which only students participating in my specific educational system have access. These readings are also intended to compensate for missing access to physical resources during the current health crisis. It's very important as educators to consider both the purpose of teachers and students reading material to each other online and in recordings, and what, if any, is the harm to the core market for the original book or resource. If you like this book, I encourage you to look for a copy through a local independently owned bookstore near you. Now let's enjoy the book together. In My Backyard by Valerie Giogas, illustrated by Catherine Zecca. In My Backyard. Dedicated to the men in my life, CG, JAG, and RDG. And to my sister, Cindy. In my backyard, I can see groups of baby animals all around me. They creep, they crawl, they run and hide. They munch, they crunch, they sleep outside. In my backyard, I can see one doe's fawn peeking at me. He sees me through the leaves and brush, then runs to Mama in a rush. In my backyard, I can see a prickle of two pups grunting at me. They gnaw on rusty hoes and rakes, then chew on twigs and tree bark flakes. In my backyard, I can see a scurry of three pups gazing at me. It's very crowded in their nest, which makes it really hard to rest. In my backyard, I can see a nursery of 4 cubs spying on me. At night they search inside our trash. I always hear the barrels crash. In my backyard, I can see a nest of 5 bunnies twitching at me. They've gotten through the garden gate. Just look at all the plants they ate. In my backyard, I can see a labor of 6 pups running from me. They cannot see their lunch of worms, but they can hear them as they squirm. In my backyard, I can see a surfeit of 7 kits squinting at me. They hunt for grubs and ants and snails, and sometimes eat the eggs of quails. In my backyard, I can see a pit of 8 hatchlings slithering near me. They twist amongst the leaves and vines and blend into a swirled design. In my backyard, I can see a skulk of 9 pups sleeping near me. They cuddle in their den all day, then late at night they look for prey. In my backyard, I can see a swarm of 10 nymphs chirping at me. They listen to their mother's sound and munch on leaves that they have found. What can you see in your backyard?
So that's a great book. As you can see, it has all kinds of really cool things that you could pull from it. For instance, counting, or even with older kids, some really good vocabulary about what names of different families of animals are called. But I'd like to just use it today to engage us in a conversation about what can we see in our own backyards. Think about it. How would you use this book, this read aloud, in a 5E lesson plan? Which stage do you think it would be good for? Another great resource in the Grown Up Wild book is called the Home Connection. You have CMAS students available to you right now. I'd encourage you to ask them to go for a walk around their home and write down the types of animals they see in their backyards or any animal signs that they see. And you can give this activity to their parents so that they can get the support of their parent. When you have I'm going to share these slides with you. You can click right here to get a printable PDF that you can send by email to your parents. So this is a home connection that asks the parents to go for a walk in their yard and record things, animal signs or animals that they see around their home and in their yard. What part of the 5E lesson plan would you use this for? Let's think about you for just a minute. Think about your own backyard, your own environment that you live in. What kinds of animals can you see in your backyard? What kinds of animals can you see in your home? Do you have pets? We live in a city. Would the animals that we see in and around our homes be different if we lived on a farm? Some of us have been able to go back to school. What kinds of animals do you think you would see at a school? If you took a walk around the school? Does your classroom have a class pet? What kinds of animals are they? What kinds of animals make good class pets? Make a list of the animals that you think of or that you see if you take a walk outside, either at school or at home. If you give this task to your CMAth child, the following week, you can talk about it. Help them explain and talk to you about what they discovered. Then you can have this conversation. Which of the animals that you saw or saw animal signs for were wild animals? Remember, wild animals provide their own food, water, shelter, and other needs. Which of the animals were domesticated animals? Remember, domesticated animals, such as farm animals and pets, depend on people for their food, water, shelter, and other needs. So there's a great resource in this lesson called Mighty Math, and it is a classification lesson or a task activity. When we do it in face-to-face settings, we usually use hula hoops, and we get to take these outside and put them on the ground to make a Venn diagram. Remember Venn diagrams from your CMAth? I got these at the Dollar Tree at $1 each. That's a great place to get hula hoops in the spring for teachers. So as you can see on this slide, you're going to have access to the set of animal cards PDF that is also in your Growing Up Wild book. You want to print those out and cut them out. There are 28 different animal cards altogether. What you would do is you would give a set of animal cards to each small group and a pair of hula hoops, and then ask them to work as a group to sort the animals into either hoop. And you can, in this case, I'm going to say one of the hoops is animals in the wild, and the other hoop is for animals at home or school. And you have to decide together which of the hula hoops the cards go in. Are there any that you might find in both? Those would go in the middle of the Venn diagram. In a face-to-face lesson, it might look like this, especially if you're doing it outside of your apartment like I was. So these are two of my neighbor children that's mom said it would be all right if I put them in this presentation. And it's also Scotty, their dog, who miraculously put himself in the correct Venn diagram location. I thought that was pretty cool. And I wish I would have been able to record their conversation, but they had a really great conversation. This is a third and a fourth grader about where these animals would go and deciding together if they were wild or if they might be a pet for someone, like the lizard. But since we're online right now, I've also made an interactive slide that you can use with yourselves or a child. It'd be great for you to try this. You just have to open up the slide and decide where you want these animals to go. So a box turtle, is that an animal that we would see in the wild? Is it an animal that you would see at home or at school? Or do you think you might be seeing a box turtle in either place? So go ahead and try this out. Move them to the place where you think they belong in the Venn diagram. You can take a picture of this and upload it to our Slack account. So how would you use this activity in your 5E lesson plan? So now I've introduced you to the resources for literature connections, the Mighty Math, and also the home connections that are one of my favorite resources in the Growing Up Wild curriculum. I'm going to let you have access to my folder, my Google folder, Wildlife is Everywhere, that has the slides that I have in this presentation, and also the PDF copy of the animal cards and the interactive slide that you can play with your CMath child if you'd like. If any of these links don't work that I'm sharing with you, please get a hold of me. And I know you guys all know how to get a hold of me. Thanks for joining me in talking about Wildlife is Everywhere.